Halloween! Hey, howdy hey, and welcome back to Emily's Adventures in Horrorland, the show where I have a cold and the football is on outside and I can't do anything about it. Oh well, let's carry on. Today's video is not so much a review as it is a retrospective, a look back at all the creepiness I absorbed growing up. Now bear in mind that when I was a wee bairn, we didn't have a lot of internet privileges, most of our films were on VHS, and the DVDs that we did get came from family trips to Blockbuster. So you could say I didn't have much access to the horror films I was too young to watch anyway. However, every budding horror hound has their early influences, the books, TV shows and films that gave them a taste for all things dark and twisted. And here are some of mine. Time to jump on the nostalgia train. Whoo whoo! I'm sorry. The first thing I have to talk about is the charming claymation kids show Trapdoor. Don't you open that trapdoor! You're a fool if you dare! Stay away from that trapdoor! 'Cause there's something down there. The sad thing is I now struggle to find anyone who remembers this. And that's a shame because this is a program that wasn't afraid to go all out and be creative. Some of these creatures that come out of the trapdoor to harass the main characters are quite unnerving to a young child. This has a lot to do with the sound design as well as their appearance. I always thought the scariest ones were the phantoms from the episode called Boo. And the one that makes me most uncomfortable is definitely the Splund from the episode of the same name.
Yes, this looks like a nice place.
Ugh. Luckily, the protagonists themselves are very likeable. There's Burke, the happy-go-lucky servant to him upstairs, whom we never see. Well, almost never.
Don't want to wait for
H.P. Lovecraft, anyone? Then there's Boney, a rather uppity talking skull who is a friend to Burke and suffers many headaches. Bernard doesn't let me call him Boney. Or any nickname, will you, Bernard? Okay, Bernard, same to you. He's giving me the finger. Drut is the little farting spider thing who is essentially a pet to the other two and also raises a lovely family. What I like most about the show, apart from its kooky sense of humour, is the relative normalcy of monsters erupting out of the ground. The ghouls encountered by Burke and his friends are more of a nuisance than a horrifying happening.
Right then, Spongeface, if you don't clear off, I'm going to give you a sound bonking.
Moving on to another TV show. Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids, a series of 2D animated cautionary tales narrated by Uncle Grizzly and his spider sidekick. They seem to be a staple of creepy kids shows. See that little boy? He's us! I do love a good cautionary tale though. Like a lot of horror fiction, cautionary tales are good at providing insight into the dangers associated with the way we live today. And they're also good for teaching kids important lessons through the cunning use of scare tactics. Well, don't you know? If you suck your thumb, then the pie man will come and chop it right off! To keep the pastry top from sinking on his pies. Obviously.
Are you the pie man? Yes. And I hear that you are a monumental sucker.
I can suck out a sheep's eyeball at 20 paces.
Oh, that's disgusting. Oh, I think we'd best move along. That last show, Goodafugaka, a BAFTA-nominated series, by the way, was based on a bunch of books by Jamie Ricks. I never got to actually read any of those, but I had plenty of spooky stories to keep me occupied in my school library, usually filed under horror/suspense because horror by itself is no good. I would like to see more weird fiction for young people, and when I was in school there were 3 authors of 3 different kinds of books to choose from. First of all, we had the much underrated Paul Jennings, an Australian author who wrote a load of books. These stories were totally bizarre, usually with twist endings. Not quite as sinister as Roald Dahl's adult fiction, but there are similarities. Secondly, we had Anthony Horowitz, Horowitz Horror and More Horowitz Horror, 2 short story collections from the guy who brought you the Alex Rider series and the latest James Bond novel. These stories were more comparable to Stephen King and his what-if scenarios. For instance, what if a bathtub harboured the spirit of a Victorian axe murderer? What if a hearing aid enabled you to pick up other people's thoughts? Murderous thoughts. And what if your aunt tried to kill her husband with suntan lotion, and how would she do that? And then we have the third and final author, the inimitable R.L. Stine, with his 2 series, Goosebumps and Ghosts of Fear Street. Everybody loved these, didn't they? I loved them, my brothers loved them, my friends did, so did the librarian's children, everybody did. Looking back, I'm not sure if they hold up so well. To be fair to Mr. Stine, he was a very prolific author, and not every story could be a winner. His writing was simple and clear, and certain wham lines really do stick with young readers. Oh god. King Jellyjam, he wants washing all the time. I had 2 teeny-weeny little problems with the books. A, the fact that the narration was very American sounding and often corny, and B, the fact that every single chapter ended with a cliffhanger. Every single one! You can't do that. My favourite one of all time would have to be Escape from the Carnival of Horrors, a choose-your-own-ending adventure. You had to be careful when you read those ones, because you did not want to be called down for dinner when all your fingers were keeping the pages. My least favourite? That's a tricky one. I do take umbrage with the ending of Don't Ever Get Sick at Granny's, but it wouldn't be the first time that an R.L. Stine protagonist ended up being a dog, so... Going back to things I watched as a child. As previously mentioned, we had a lot of VHS tapes, and one of them was a Disney release of The Adventures of Ichabod, an adaptation of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow story by Washington Irving. This film is disarmingly colourful and cheerful to begin with, and then towards the end... This is perhaps the closest thing to honest-to-goodness horror, a real ghost story. The original tale paints Ichabod Crane as an interesting character. In this, his hedonistic traits are toned down a bit, but he's still superstitious as all heck. So, his rival Brombones tells him of the headless horseman that passes through these here woods. Naturally, Ichabod encounters said spirit that night, and his fate is left quite ambiguous. At least we adults understand it's ambiguous. To my 12-year-old self, Icky was dead. We'll cover one last film, and again, this was before I started to delve into the Twilight Zone and other horror stuff for grown-ups. There was this one animated movie that was as dark as they come, and nobody ever seems to mention it. Why? Do they just not know, or am I overestimating how markedly dystopian and scary it was? Well, I guess we're about to find out. Winnie the Pooh's Most Grand Adventure. I know what you must be thinking. What, that chubby little cubby all stuffed with fluff? That's not possible, it couldn't be! Oh, but it is. This film is an original story that is not directly based on any of A.A. Milne's books, and the plot is this. Christopher Robin goes missing one day from the 100-acre wood, and Pooh Bear and all his friends misinterpret this note from him, believing that their friend is in great danger, gone to a terrible place called Skull. They embark upon a treacherous quest to rescue him, and along the way they realise that their greatest strengths come from within, that the power of friendship conquers, etc., etc. But bloody hell, this is one grim kids movie.
Piglet, come back! I can't lose you too!
Did you ever want to hear your favourite characters screaming in terror?
Tigger? Rabbit?
Eeyores is the worst of all. Everyone's afraid, everyone's depressed and defeated.
I've failed us all. I believe I have as well.
At one point, we see them grieving for someone they believe has been killed by the Skullosaurus.
I'm gonna miss that bear. Oh, Pooh.
Honestly, I considered giving this film a full review on its own because I just could not believe that Disney had put it out. And they put out a lot of dark stuff in their films anyway. So, let me know if you watched this growing up, because I'm starting to think I'm the only one.
I'm the only one.
Well, that's everything that got me started on horror when I was young. As for what I cut my teeth on as a teenager, well, that's another video. I hope you've enjoyed this little thing, whatever it is. I have a few more videos in mind for the month of Halloween, but please feel free to let me know what creepy things you were brought up on and how they shaped your understanding of the horror genre. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio. Wolfsbane, poison. Poison, wolfsbane. Ooh, Diet Coke.